Well, hello there, Board Game Maniacs. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Painting with a Maniac. This is possibly going to be the very last episode for the bunker build. And if it is, great. If not, if we have to add it more, then we add it more. But if you've been following along with me this entire time, thank you. And if you subscribed, thank you. Hit the bell notification, thank you again. So if you haven't, click the subscribe button and the bell notification to be notified when other videos like this becomes available. Whew. All right. So where we left off last time with the previous video, and again, if you haven't checked out any of the other videos into this build, I strongly suggest you do that before you check out this one. All right. So where we left off again is we sanded the surface, we got everything all prepped and ready for painting. So in this episode, we are going to paint it all up. We're going to put the sand onto it. We're going to flock it and everything. Hopefully we're going to get everything done, because so far my aim is to keep these videos down to maybe about an hour, a little over an hour, and I've been successful up to this point. So maybe this may run a little longer if we're very close to finishing, or if we're not, then we'll just have to do it more. But in either case, on with the show. Here we have all of the terrain. We built this tree, we built this bunker, and we're building the part for the scatter terrain. So we're going to take the tree off because we don't need this for a little while. And we're going to take the bunker because we don't need that for a while as well. Alrighty. So what we're going to do now is, because I have the plans that all of this surface is going to be like a earth tone, sand texture, color, and then flocking of grass too as well. These are going to be flocked with grass and earth tone texture on top too as well. And the sides are going to be like a rock face kind of thing, and then you have your boulder cave in that is right here. So to start this off, what we're going to do is we're going to paint the rocks, actually the rock face first, because the wash that we're doing is going to leak down into here, which can color the sand and everything that we're going to put down, and we don't want that yet. That'll be like one of the last things we do. So because of that, we're going to concentrate on these rock face here, like all of the blue that you see. And that's what we're going to paint first. And the way we paint this, I've seen this on a YouTube channel. Excuse me. I think it's Luke's app. Either way, I really liked his approach to painting the rock faces. It was really cool. So what we're going to do then is we're going to continue on with this painting for the rock face by painting it with different colors. And the colors we're going to use, I'm going to show you on camera anyhow, but it's going to be burnt umber, and then it's going to be burnt umber with black to make it darker brown, and we're going to be using a yellow with a brown and a black, and we're going to pretty much water these all down so that it's going to create this nice gradual fading in and out of the dark and so on, and some highlights and everything else. So having said that, just bear with me. I'm going to get the paints, mix them up, and I'll show you what I did. Let's mix the paint up first. Now, what I already did is in each cup, I put a little drop of PVA glue into it, just a little tiny bit, and that's in each of the 4 cups. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take just some dish soap, and I'm just going to put a drop kind of in the way of the camera. I'll move it this way so you can see it better. So just a little drop. The color of the dish soap don't really matter. It's just as long as you put some dish soap into it. I already explained the previous ones why I think it's important to have dish soap, because it helps the washes pool or settle. So the amount is, just like I said, a drop or two. Sometimes it comes out a little faster. It's not going to really impact too much unless you vigorously shake it up. Then you're looking at that it's going to impact it more so than others. Okay, so after you did that, we're going to take just some dollar store cheap acrylic paint. You can see right there, and it is bright yellow. So we're going to mix the yellow up first, or the yellowish brown. So I'm going to drop a good amount of yellow into this one. Show you how much. Again, this mixture can be varied. a little bit of yellow into that. And then we're going to take the burnt umber, which is more acrylic paint. See right there. And we're going to just hit that up with like just a couple of drops, or maybe 1 or 2 drops. We don't want it to be too brown. So 1, 2, just like that. And the next thing we're going to do after that is we're going to add some water to it. So I got my squirt bottle here, and the amount of water, you can just pour it in if you want, is just to kind of overflow the yellow a little bit to start off with. We're probably going to add more, but just in case. So again, the water is just going over top of the yellow. And off camera, I'm just stirring it here just to make sure I get the brown added to it and the yellow. And we're going to mix accordingly if we need to add more yellow or more brown or what have you. So right now, it's not as bright yellow, but it is brighter than what I like. So I'm going to add a little bit more burnt umber to it. So, you know, probably like 3 more drops or so. 4 drops, 5 drops. Again, the ratio is going to be completely different when you're doing this because it's depending on what color or what look you want to get. So again, just mixing it up. That's a better brown. Brownish yellow or yellowish brown. Yeah. So add more water now, because you can see the color now. Just gonna add more water to it. When I say add more water, you know, not a tremendous amount more water, but enough so that it's still going to be watery, but not like super watery. Because judging from Luke's app, that YouTube page, I really liked the way his turned out, and I kind of want to mimic that a little bit. So yes, I'm stealing off of your idea there, Luke, but thank you very much for posting it. It's not really stealing, because that's the whole point of showing it, so that you can learn to do it yourself. So you can see there, that's a good color yellow, and the consistency, you know, I like the thickness of it. So that's going to be the yellow part. Now, the next thing we're going to do is let's mix up the burnt umber. I just rubbed the paper towel across my mic. Sorry about that. So for the burnt umber, again, it's the PVA on top of that with a little bit of dish soap. And then we're going to do the burnt umber. So this is going to be a wash too as well. Probably about as watery as the yellow. So you can see there the amount that I put in there. It covers over the PVA and that, so I'm going to spray this now. And it's always good to add less water at first, and if you need more, then add it. So I'm just going to take that up and mix it off camera here. Now, when you're mixing this, because it has the dish soap into it, you don't want to mix like super vigorously because you're going to create so much bubbles. Bubbles are okay, but you know, you kind of would prefer not to have as much bubbles. So again, I'm just going to add more water because that is a little too opaque for my taste. I want to be more transparent. Not super transparent, but transparent enough. Good way to check is when you take your paint, let me try to get a little closer onto this. Brush it up against the side, and when it runs down and what's left behind, you'll see like how dark it is or how light it is. So that's not too bad. Maybe a little bit more wouldn't hurt. And you just mix it up. Just like so. All right. Just checking it on the side. A little more water wouldn't hurt. Not like a tremendous amount more water, but a little more water won't hurt. I like it. All right. So that is the burnt umber mixture with the PVA and the dish soap and water. Now we're going to mix up the darker brown. Now you could just use like a flat brown if you want, And I was hoping to use that so I wouldn't have to mix it up, but the problem is I don't have any just basic flat brown paint left, so I'm going to make my own. So burnt umber goes in, and then we take some black. Again, it's just basic, the cheap kind. Actually, I should probably shake that up a little bit more because it's a new bottle. Because if you don't shake this up, because the paint will separate with the other ingredients into it, and you have to make sure it's all nice and mixed up. So 3 drops of black. We'll see what that is so far. Just mixing it off camera here, because we want a darker brown for this, more of like proper brown color, if that makes sense. Yeah, it needs more black. I want it darker, like just basic flat brown, more of a shade on the darker side as opposed to the burnt umber brown. There we go. So you can see that, that's pretty good. I like that color. And then we're going to really super water this one down. Probably, well, I'll show you how much water I put into it, because this is going to be more of a wash. Like, both of those are washed already. I keep saying like. Both of them are a wash. This is going to be a wash too, but it's going to be more of a watered down wash. So you can see there, this is super watered down. And if you brush it up, you kind of get the idea of how much of a wash it is. Just mix that up like this gently. Stirring not so vigorously, but scraping the sides and the bottom. Okay, that is a good color. And now the last wash we're creating is going to be just straight black, but it's going to be really watered down too as well. The same as what the brown is. The flat brown mix that I made with the burnt umber and the black. So again, I'm just mixing this up with just the acrylic with the PVA and also the dish soap before I add the water to it. Just make sure it's mixed pretty good. Now I'm just going to add the water, the spray bottle. You can just pour the water into if you want, but I just grabbed the spray bottle where it is, and that was it. Okay. So I'm just testing the sides. When I say testing the sides, you know what I mean by taking this and brushing it up on the side. Seeing look how watery it is. And I'm happy with that. Okay, so that is it for mixing the paint up. So now we're going to start painting the rock face. Not the top part of the rock, but just the rock face. So the rock faces and the sides. So let's bring the board back in and start painting away, shall we? Rock face is in place. And now we are going to start off with the yellow. And even though you just mix these up, if you leave them sit, you know, everything is going to start separating again. So you want to make sure you mix them up as best as you can just before you paint. You can use your good brushes on this if you want. It's not a big deal. And the reason why is because it's only paint. It will come off. You just got to wash off. And I have some paper towel here if I need to dab it. So a little bit of the yellow. And again, the way that he did this is he didn't like systematically put it around. He just kind of put it around in certain spots. And that's what we're doing. Just like that. Same with onto the rock mound, or the not the rock mound, but the cave-in that we did too as well. Don't have to do too much of this, but you get the idea. Just putting it on, making a wash. So I'll just keep adding that because I got to move it around. I got to step in front of the camera and everything. We'll be back after the yellow wash is done. Yellow wash is all finished and it is still drying. And while it's drying, I'm going to add the next color, which is the burnt umber color. Not the darker brown, just the burnt umber. And I'm just stirring this again just to make sure that it's nice and mixed. And I clean my brush out too as well, because you want to make sure that you're not mixing the different colors together. So I'm not going on the yellow per se, I'm going around the yellow. Now what he did is he painted everything white first, and I chose not to paint the white. The reason why is because I wanted a little bit of a different variation than what he painted. So you can see him kind of just going around all of the yellow, avoiding the yellow. I don't want to leave any of the blue though, because it don't make sense for the blue foam to show through. So you can see me just doing that, and I'm going to go around the entire rock face, and when that's done I'm going to dry it with the heat gun, and then I will be back. I say dry it with the heat gun because I want this all dried before we start off with the next 2 washes. Now that the 2 washes are done, we're going to put on the 3rd wash, which is the darker brown, and it is more watered down. So the way we're doing this is we are pretty much just putting it on all over, or coating it everywhere. Just like this here. Make sure you get it in all the spots. Now it looks like so far that, you know, all the work of putting the yellow and then the burnt umber onto it and then doing this wash, that it's kind of covers over everything, but it will dry lighter and you'll be able to see through it. But we're going to do something else too as well, just to help it out a little bit. And pretty much we did this before when I was painting the bunker, and where we put it on and then we're just taking paper towel and we're dabbing it off. You'll see that in a moment there. So just like that, I'm just going to stick this to the side in case we're going to use any more of it. We're going to take some paper towel, and again we're just dabbing it off. I'm just going to move this out of the way because it just fell. Luckily it didn't spill anywhere. So again, I'm not trying to strip all the color off of it, because I'm just trying to pretty much soak up the excess, is the best way of putting it, I guess. So the yellow is still there, but it's not as strong as before we put the wash onto it. It kind of acts as like a highlight in itself. And we're just going to keep doing this. So I'll just keep doing this, cleaning this all up. I may add a couple more. I might add the wash to it again in some spots if I want it to be a little bit darker or lighter. But remember, we still have the black wash too as well to put over top of it. So I'll just continue this and I'll be back when this is all finished and dried. You can see a different angle here of the mound, the rock formation mound. I guess it's, like I said, it's not a mountain, it's more of like just a mound of dirt or rock or what have you. So with this all dry, we're just going to be using the black wash is the last one that we're doing. And again, we are covering it over completely, just like this. And then we're going to do the same process of just using a piece of paper towel and dabbing it all off. Pretty easy. And all this is just so it's going to get into the crevices more, because this here wash is a lot more watered down than the other two. The dark brown wash was watered down, probably about the same consistency as this to get into all the crevices. And another thing too as well is where I mixed the PVA into it, pretty much this paint that's going on is going to be sealed with the layers of PVA mixed in with it. So it adds that much more protection to it. But you can always just go over this with some watered down PVA and spritz it all again. totally up to you, or you can just wait till the very end and then seal it. So again, you can see I'm just boop, 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 boop. The black, just like this. It looks pretty bad right now, but once it's all dry and everything is all blended, it'll all come to shape, into form. There, just like that. Pretty easy peasy. And then we'll grab some of our paper towel here and go over it again. And that's why I didn't do the sand effect yet, because if I painted and then put sand and everything else onto it, what would have happened is, because of this black wash and everything, it would make things look dirty again. Dirty is good, but I'm going for a different kind of look. So because of that, you just, you know, pick and choose and just put your paint on, and just like building miniatures and everything else, you want to do it in a way that makes sense to you, so you don't have to do as much work. Yeah, just like that. Pretty easy. You see all the nice little rock definition in here, where the blacks and the browns and the yellows kind of all mixed together. Then you can always dry brush too as well afterwards, which I may do, but I won't really know 100% sure until this is all completely dry, and then we'll judge from there if we should dry brush this or just leave it like it is. Just bring out some highlights. But I am liking where this yellowish brown is kind of showing through in spots. I'm glad I opted for not painting it white first, just to let the white show through, because I didn't want it to be like a lighter color. I want it to be more of a darker color to go with my Endor theme color board. And again, with the miniatures, with the basis that are onto it too as well, that the sand color was a little light, but it wasn't like super light. So that's what the yellow kind of is on there too. It kind of goes with the lighter tan color that I painted onto the basis. So just, yeah, just like that. Everything is all good to go here. So I think I'm okay to stop dabbing. Let this dry. I'm probably going to use the heat gun though, just to speed it up so that we can get going and moving with this further along. So stand by, and I'll be back after this is dry, and we're going to do the sand texture, painting and sand texture next to the base. Since it is all dry now, the next thing we're going to do is I decided, well, I'm going to do a little bit of a dry brush onto it, just a very minimal one, just to brighten it up a little bit. And it's kind of outside the color spectrum of what I painted it though, because it's again more browns and yellows. But what we're going to do for the dry brush is we're going to mix up just some craft paint, and it's going to be like 3 parts white, 1 part black, 2 parts burnt umber. And this is not mixing the PVA glue or water or anything with it. All it is just mixing it together and starting to dry brush it. I did a test color. You can see there it is gray with a little hint of brown into it. So that's it. Now we're going to start dry brushing. So I'm just going to put the color here. Clean brush. Dip it in. Strip this off a little bit. So again, I don't want to have like a tremendous amount of color put onto it. I'm just gently rubbing it over so it hits all of them areas. So the rock is still like the brown and yellow and everything, but it's kind of is taking on a form of like a grayish hue. Also here. Anything you don't like, you can always just repaint over it. So just like that. Take some more of the gray. Again, the amount of gray that I'm putting on it, grayish brown, is very little. See there? Again, I'm going to be putting grass and everything else on this. I keep saying again. So just like that, just brushing off the excess a bit. All right, so I'll just keep dry brushing, and I'll be back when I'm all done, and you'll see the final result of the dry brush. Awesome! So dry brush is all done. It's kind of close up, but you can see the nice rock texture, all the details there too as well for the cave-in kind of thing. So that is really good. I like this, the way it turned out. It is turning out like I visioned in my head, so that's a good thing. Now the next step, now some people argue that this is kind of like an extra step because you are covering it over with sand anyhow and you're going to be doing dry brushing. But what I like to do just to cover my bases, because sand will eventually pull off the parts that you put it on, your miniatures or your terrain. So the next step is we're going to mix up some burnt umber with PVA, no water down, and we're going to paint the entire rest of this surface, even in where the tree's supposed to go. We're going to paint that with the burnt umber, but this section here is going to be gray to match the color of the bunker. So be aware of that. That's what we're going to do next. But first off, I'm just going to cut the video. We're going to mix up the paint and then we'll be back. What I did before I mixed up the burnt umber color is the highlight that I had left for the rock mound. I painted this gray patch area where the bunker is going to be fitting. You could have done it afterwards, it's just I had some left over, so that's what I did. So just be aware of that. Next thing that I did is I just mixed up the burnt umber with PVA glue, not watered down or anything. And we are just going to go in now and we are just going to paint away this entire thing. And like I said, that some people think this here is kind of like an extra step that's not needed because you're going to be covering it with sand anyhow. But what I like to do is just cover my tracks, which means that if any sand is going to lift up in any spot of it, then it's still covered with the burnt umber paint that's underneath it. I just like to cover my bases because I built some terrain before, just when I started learning how to build terrain, and I didn't cover the base, and then the sand, I hit it by accident and it kind of pulled some of the sand off of it, and I had this patch left and it looked pretty strange, and I had to, you know, it was more work, not a whole lot more work, but more work to go and fix it. So by doing it this way, it just makes things go a little easier, and if you can't get at fixing what you're doing first, then, you know, you can leave it sit, you can leave it go for a little bit because you still have that undercoat of burnt umber underneath it. So yeah, I'm just going to keep going on. I'm going to cover the whole area. I won't bore you by watching me do this. So I'll be back after that's all done. Burnt umber is all down and it's pretty close to being 100% dry. So now we're just going to jump on to the next step, and we're going to take just school glue PVA. You can see there, I'll put it. And the school glue PVA, it's not watered down or anything, and we're going to coat the base, and then we're going to go over it with the sand. Woohoo! And parts that I'm going to avoid is going to be like this gray area for one, because I don't want to get that. And also inside the tree, we are going to be adding sand inside the tree, like if there's any spots after I glue the tree down. But for the most part, like, we're not going to even attempt to put sand in there because it's just something more that with the hot glue is going to have to contend with to glue down the tree. Hope I'm not in the camera here. Yeah, we're just kind of, you know, doing what we can here. PVA is going to dry, like, not immensely fast, but it is certainly going to dry. So I'm just trying to go as fast as I can here, just to spread it around. You can see too that I had bags laying here right from the first, and that's because I don't want to, I want to minimize the mess. Even though that we're in my workshop, I still kind of would like to minimize the mess as much as I could. Minimize it with the sand. So just be aware of that. I got a tarp and, you know, bags over here. Just to minimize it. Oh, I'm still in shot, good. And I'm brushing this PVA right up to the edge of the mound, the rock mound. Probably even a little bit on it a bit. And we are going to obviously add some sand here and there on top of it and everything else. Just want to make sure you get any crevices that might be there. Make sure you get in there too as well. I'll put a little bit of sand up here. And I just dabbed, you can't see because I'm working behind, but I just dabbed some of the PVA onto the rock rubble. So just the sand will grab some of it. Just like that. And of course I'm going to be adding a little details, more sand here and there. This is kind of like just the base of it. And again, I'm trying to avoid this as much as possible for gluing it down, for when I'm gluing down, so the sand don't interrupt the seal for the bunker. All right, so since that is done like that, we are going to take the sand, and the sand I'm using is beach sand. The name of it is Bomix, and I got it just at a local hardware store. But you could use play sand, anything you want really. And you can see I'm just spreading it on. And that's why you need the protection. All right. Just trying to contain it as best as I can. Not create as much dust, because the camera and dust don't mix. Yeah, it's not too difficult. I'm just going to stop the video. You don't need to see me sprinkling sand over everything. So when that's done, we're going to just tip it up, tap it off, and then I'll be back. Like tip this scatter terrain piece up and tap all the loose sand off. Now that all the sand is put down there with the PVA, sprinkle it on, then I tipped it and dumped it and tapped the excess off. So all we got here now is a base, and the next step is pretty simple. This is the same. If you've seen any of my other Painting with the Maniac episodes, you see that I did the basis earlier on, and I think it was like Lord of the Rings for Games Workshop month. Go check it out too as well. I just took some standard PVA glue and watered it down to a milk-like consistency into this. So you can see it's a milk-like consistency. And we are just going to gently spread it over top of this and then leave it sit for a good couple of hours so it dries. And it will dry really good. Like, oh, how can I explain it how it's going to dry? It will dry and it will feel like sheetrock, if you know what sheetrock is. It's like textured drywall, I guess is the best way to put it. So you have the texture onto this, it's all bumpy. And after that, we're going to be painting this, like painting the sand with a different color to match the base. And when that's dry, you know, doing some highlights on it too as well. And you just have to follow along, because the bases, again, I'm matching it up exactly, or at least as close as possible to the miniature bases that I did for the Star Wars Legion, because this is part of the game for the Moon of Endor. Woo! I'm excited. So there you go. Now I'm trying to not disturb the sand that's down there, because it is super delicate right now. Like, you could disturb it and move it around and everything. So you just want to be very careful and just gently dab so you don't pull the sand off anywhere. If you do though, you can always just add more. It's not a big deal whatsoever. It's very easy to do. But you know, the less time you spend with this and the more time you spend gaming, the better off it is, I think. And so I'm probably going to be in the way of the camera soon. But again, I'm just going to keep dabbing this on like this. And when it's dry, we'll be back and I'll show you what it looks like when it's all set. And again, we didn't add any sand texture or anything to the rock mounds yet, because we're going to do that after we glue everything in place. We do flocking and so on. PVA is all dry now onto the base. You can see nothing's coming off. It's down nice and strong, nice and tight. It's very firm. There's nothing going to be falling off. And I have a Stormtrooper here just to compare about with the bases that I've painted onto the miniatures, and you can see it is very close to being the same there. So because of that, I don't really need to throw on like a wash and then highlighting. I'm probably going to highlight a little bit though as time goes on, but you can see some of the burnt umber is showing through on the sand itself, so that's kind of giving a little bit of a shadow. So I'm liking that so far. We're getting close here. We are definitely getting close. The next thing I think we're going to do now is we're going to start doing some flocking around here and up onto the rock mounds. And then we're probably just going to start gluing down the tree and the bunker and then just doing some final touches. But we'll see as we're going along. But right now, let's get ready to start doing some flocking. For the flocking, the first thing we're going to do is we're just take some undiluted PVA glue, and we're going to start putting around where we want to add the flocking. So it's going to be sparse in certain spots, but in other spots it's going to be a little bit more dense. So just be aware of that. I'm just putting it in between here. Like that there. And now I'm going to take some of my flocking. Again, I'm going to be doing this, you know, intermittent. And we are going to be using a wide variety of different types of flocking. But right now we're going to be using Battlefield's Moss Green. You can see right there. Maybe I can get in focus. There we go. Battlefield Moss Green. We're going to be using that first. So just opening this up here. Taking it and just sprinkling it down. And I'm leaving some spots because I am going to be putting different other color of flocking down. Hope my arm's not in the way there. A little bit of that so far. And now let's grab some more different type of flocking. Let's grab some, here we go. So the next grass we're going to grab is Battlefield Steep Green, if I can get that there. Again, it's another type of Battlefield. It's a different shade of green. Gotta open this up. Just pinching it. Again, I'm just kind of mixing it all together. We're going to be continuing this over a lot of the base, but there's going to be some sand showing through too as well. Good to use more than one type of flocking when you're doing flocking, because you want to break it up the surface. You don't want it to be all monotone. So again, doing this way. I'm not going to be doing the whole board flocking on camera, obviously, because it'll take forever. But just to show you how I'm approaching it. That's another color that I'm using. Now I have some moss too as well and some fine turf. And I think we're going to use a little bit of the fine turf. Now this came in a set. It was, I think it was, again, the same company, if I'm not mistaken, Battlefield. So you can see if I can get it on camera. This is green grass, fine turf. That I'm going to be using. Where's my scissors gone? All right, there's that. So again, just kind of adding a little bit of variation to this all. And again, don't be scared to apply this onto the mounds of the rocks and everything else. It pretty much, it's by your choice of what you want. So before I go on to the next step of sealing the turf and everything, I'm going to just apply it to the entire board. And then I'll be back and I'll show you what it looks like. I have the flocking done, pretty much just using what I did again was with the 3 different color flocks and kind of spread it all around. So I'm liking how grassy it looks, but we're not done yet. We are going to add some more flock. And the flock that I'm adding is Woodland Scenic Static Grass Flock Burnt Grass. So you can see it right there. And I got some PVA mixed with some water, very watered down, and a little tiny bit of 99% isopropyl alcohol into it. And we're going to seal it all with this anyhow, but right now I'm just kind of giving it a general spray around the whole thing, just a light mist, because we're going to add our static grass now, the burnt grass. And where we're going to do it is kind of around the tree. First off, we're going to start doing it around the tree. Let's move it here so you can see it a little better. Kind of throwing it on here and there. You know, with this burnt grass, it's good that, you know, you can put it on over the entirety of it, but very lightly, just to kind of break it up and tone it down a little bit. Because I do find it a little bit on the bright side for the grass. But as we know, the Moons of Endor, they have a lot of grass, and it's not all burnt. It's very vibrant, as you've seen in Return of the Jedi. So we're trying to keep that vibrancy, but just kind of darken it a bit in some more spots. So yeah, I'm just kind of sprinkling it around. That's not bad at all. And now what we're going to do is just sprinkle around the entirety of the terrain, scatter terrain. I don't know if you'd classify this actually as like scatter terrain now, or is it more like a diorama? I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, I'm just soaking this again with some more of the spray. Not soaking it, but spraying it a little bit more. Making sure my hands are clean of it, because you grab the static grass with the glue mixture onto you, and you're pretty much gluing static grass to your fingers. Not that it can't come off or anything, but it just, you don't want it on your fingers more than what you want it onto the piece. So yeah, just gently misting it on here and there. A little here, a little there. So when I'm all done with this, I'll be back and I'll show you what the final look is. Just remember that after I'm done sprinkling this last bit of grass, which is static grass, I'm going to take the PVA mixture with the water and the alcohol. And isopropyl alcohol, 99%. I'm probably looking at like two of that to 4 PVA to like 8 water, because it's super watered down. So just be aware of that. I don't really have the actual proper mixing ratio, but it's not hard to figure it out. Just so it looks like milk and you can pass it through a spray bottle. All the flocking is done with the burnt grass too as well. So you can see that the burnt grass, it kind of broke it up a bit and it made it less camouflagey looking and more like grass that's been growing, and also onto the rock mounds and everything too as well. Now the next step we're going to do is we're just going to leave this dry first off. It got to be super dry before we start applying anything else to it. And then after that's done, we're going to start putting in place like the tree, glue on the tree, glue on the bunker. Excuse me. And after that, then we're going to add some like clump foliage around just to kind of tie it all in. And the clump foliage we're going to be using is the Woodland Scenic clump foliage. It's medium green. So just be aware of that. And probably a little bit of moss too as well we may throw around. And then it's just going to be a matter of just sealing everything. And we will be completely done of this scatter terrain / diorama, I guess. I don't know, but the big thing that we're going to have to do is when we put the tree down here, you can see we're going to have to work this in, because the tree branches, or the trunks of the tree, the roots, are going to have to be where it's going to be all glued down. We're going to be applying grass and probably some more sand or some rubble of some kind over top of that, just along the roots, just to help kind of hide the edging between the scatter terrain base and the tree, so it looks more natural. But in either case, we'll be back when this is dry. It's probably only be like not even a 0.2 of a second for you, but for me it's going to be a little bit. I'm probably going to leave it dry for like a good 2 or 3 hours. Now that this is all dry, you can see touching it, everything else, there's nothing coming off on my hands, so it is good. I get the excess here from sprinkling. It's stuck with glue and everything though, so it's just garbage. That's why, again, why you want to make sure your area where you're working is kind of protected, so it's easier to clean up in the long run. But in either case, moving on, we're going to take our tree now and we are going to glue it down to our spot. But before we glue it, we just want to make sure that we have it into the proper location. So this root here is pointing outward, so that's kind of like my mark. And we're going to just glue this down with a hot glue gun. So I'm just going to glue the bottom of it first, like work from the center and then work my way out. We'll glue the roots down separately. I need another glue stick. I'm running out. There we go, quickly. Don't want the glue to set up. Again, just working around the edging. I know I'm kind of off camera with this, but just bear with me here, because all I'm doing is I'm gluing. Okay, glue's on. Got to put it in place now. Kind of stick it down. Good thing about the latex tree too, as well, is it's very flexible, that you can shift it around a little bit here and there while you're getting the glue down. Yeah, just put that down like so. Right, just going to leave that set for a minute, and then we're just going to take the glue gun and glue around the roots just to get them all nice and secure. But again, you can see it's setting really well. Again, lifting this up, putting some glue down there, holding it in place. Just like that. All right, so I'm not going to bore everybody with just gluing down the roots with the glue gun. When I'm all done and secure, we'll be back. Tree's all glued down, you can see, onto the roots. Again, We're going to be adding some flocking and possible sand and some rubble too as well along this, just to kind of fill it in. Now, some big gaps like this I am leaving because when I did, if you notice, if you've been following along, when I was cutting the foam, I was making it all rough underneath. And the reason why I was making it all rough underneath to resemble like more roots. And on this side here, you can't really see it as much. Let's see if I can turn it around here. Like the bumpiness right here, that signifies more roots that are kind of going deeper. So that is why that is done like that. Now, you're probably asking at this point, like, why did you put sand on the base and then flock the entire base? Because you're kind of covering up work that you already done there. And the reason for it is because anybody who've done flocking before or has any miniatures or what have you with flocking onto it, you do know that it ends up coming off after a while. Like it gets loose and starts falling off. So because of that, when this stuff eventually does come loose, if it does come loose, but more, it's inevitable that it does come loose, it's going to expose the burnt umber paint on the sand underneath. So again, it's going to save a lot more repair in the long run, because if some of the grass comes off the flocking and you see the sand texture with the burnt umber underneath, it's just going to add to it. So that's why I've done that, just to kind of make this more future proof, I guess, for when I'm using it. And if it starts coming apart and that, then it's going to be protected in either way. So just be aware of that. Anyhow, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take some flocking, darker colors, and we're going to start mixing it in here. And then we're probably going to be throwing some rubble on. And the rubble we're going to be using is, if I can get it in focus here, I got it from a kid. It's from Army Painter, actually. It's not really good. There we go. It's an Army Painter product. And all it is crushed up cork. You can make your own by getting some cork and breaking it up, or using real rocks if you like, and putting sand or what have you. So in either case, I got a brush, and I'm just going to take my PVA now, and I'm dropping it where I want this to be at, like with the grass and everything. And we're probably going to throw some moss on it and everything else, just to kind of give it a little bit more realistic look to it. And this PVA that I'm putting on here, it is it's not altered in any way. Like there's no mix of water into it or what have you. This is just all straight PVA. And while we're at it, let's put a little bit going up here. And put some flocking. It's kind of growing a bit with it. Just like so. Now we're going to use the darker color flocking. Sprinkling it on. You don't have to go as deep with when you're cutting out the foam like I did, but I know I wanted to make it look like it was more inset than anything. So because of that, that's why I've done it. Like, so now we're going to use the lighter green just to break it up a little bit. Fine turf. Moss growing on it. Again, I'm going to be throwing some moss down. So again, just like that. Now, after that's all dry, or after we got this whole tree filled in with the moss and that, we're going to just tap it all off. And then we're just going to seal it with our watered down PVA, which I've done for this stuff here. And then we're going to leave it dry. And once that is all done and I got this all treated, we'll come back and we'll probably throw some more moss detail onto it as well. So just stand by for that. With that all dry, you can see there's some little cave-ins and indents, like the dirt is, the ground, dirt, whatever you want to call it, is falling away. It's eroding a bit, which is really cool. But if you don't like that, I'm going to show you a different alternative. Like, I like the way this is, but there's going to be some parts that are gap. You can do one of two things. You can mix up some PVA and sand to like a thick paste consistency and fill in all the cracks and then leave it dry and then flock over top of it if you want. Or you can do this approach, which is taking the clump foliage from the Woodland Scenic that I said in one of the previous clips. And we are going to apply some of this clump foliage to areas. And it just with some PVA glue and so on. I'll show you. Just taking the PVA and applying it where I want it at. Just like so. Then we're going to take some of the clump foliage, see here, and we're going to stick it down. Not too difficult. Just like so, you know, because that way you can cover up any indents or anything that you don't want to be there. Just like that. And then you would just take the watered down PVA and spray it onto that and leave it set. So I'm going to do the same for just bits and pieces of this, and then when that's all dry, we'll be back and I'll show you what our next step is. We're very, very close to finishing this diorama slash scatter terrain, I guess, for Star Wars Legion. Anyhow, I'll be back. While we're waiting for the clump foliage to dry, we're just going to continue on, and we're going to be gluing down this bunker into its spot, just like so. And to glue it down, all we do is we're going to, I'm kind of covering the camera there for a second, use the hot glue gun, just glue around all the edges and place it down. Very easy to do. And again, running out of a glue stick. Grab another one, throw it in quickly. All right, continuing on. Okay. Let's put this puppy in place. Just like that. Hold it down for a couple of minutes. Now, if any of the glue seeps out, it's not a big deal, because we are going to dress this too as well with some clump foliage and some more grass. Set for a minute. All right, well, I guess I don't have to keep it rolling and keep being bored. So we'll be back after this is set. And again, all I'm going to do is just probably throw some clump foliage around here. Same thing you did for the tree, that I did for the tree, no special. And then when this is all set, we'll be back. You can see here that it's coming together very nicely. Now, the only other thing I'm going to add to it, I was going to add some moss in that. This is Battlefields Undergrowth, you can see here. So I'm just going to add that with some PVA too as well. But where I'm going to put it is kind of going up the side of the bunker here. You know, like it's a vine or stuff like that where it's just starting to take over. So you can see that the stuff is all lifting off because I did not wait till it's dry because I just excited to get this done. So there's a project in the making for a while, in my brain that is. There we go. All right, so now let's grab that undergrowth and we're just going to apply it to where we put the PVA. You could use super glue too as well. Totally to your discretion. Yeah, just stick some undergrowth there. It's got its own camouflaging. Add some, like the forest is eating up this bunker, swallowing it. It's not bad like that actually. There we go. Looking look, so I'm going to apply some more around here. And then we will be back. There you have it, Board Game Maniacs. This project is complete. I put my stamp of completeness onto it. And I have to say, I liked how this turned out. It kind of turned out like I had the vision in my brain. I just got it onto my one of my fat mats from Table War, and you can see it kind of blends in pretty good. A little bit of an edge, but you know, for a tabletop game, this is going to work great for some terrain. I really like the look of this, the detail onto it. You can see here I added some more vine work going up here and a little bit on the back as well, and I got like the clump foliage going around, a little bit of grass here, go around it's all overgrown, it's all growing up over it. You can see here that the grass is kind of take over the rock mounds, and the little rubble with the grass is taken over too as well. And for the trees right here, you can see it's blended in really nice. And just with the spots, I kind of put some clump foliage around here just to kind of help hide the hole a bit. But as I said before, you can always just mix up some PVA and sand and use it as a filler, and then you can flock over top or what have you if you want to fill in. It just takes a lot longer to dry. And you can see there, I added some more vines and clump foliage around the edge there. I'm really, really enjoying this. This is just making me more and more want to play Star Wars Legion. But I still have a couple more things to build for this game. Some more scattered terrain for the board, obviously. Really cool. I can't say too much. The only thing with this whole project, but the more advanced part, like I said, is building this tree. That's probably would be the most difficult part of it all, as in finding materials for it, because everything else is just some foam and some hardboard, I should say, water cap, bottle caps, you know, some miniature guns from the Star Wars. Everything else is pretty good. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you followed along, and if you do follow this and build scattered terrain such as this, or even if you build some more Star Wars terrain, I would love to see what work you've done. Just, if you can put it in the comment section, great. If not, just email us at boardgamemaniacs@gmail.com, because I would love to see the other scattered terrain, because it does inspire me, whether it's for Endor, the Moon of Endor, or not. It's still going to inspire me and make me want to play this game more and more. So yeah, just send me an email or comment there below. And don't forget to click on the subscribe and the bell notification if you haven't already for more videos such as this come available, as well as when we start playing Star Wars Legion on the channel, which is going to be this month. Obviously, it's the theme month of Star Wars Legion by Fantasy Flight Games. Oh, I don't know what else I could say about this. This was a long project broken up into a different mini-series. So the bunker, the tree, and then the build. So three-part mini-series, I think, is what I got it working out to what I'm editing. But we'll find out. But in either case, what I'm going to do now is just going to set up a couple of Star Wars miniatures here, and I'm just going to take some nice close video shots, leave it at the end of this video, and so you can enjoy it. So until next time, Board Game Maniacs, build some terrain, play some games, talk to people, communication is key, and most importantly of all, and that is, be a maniac. See you next time. Enjoy the videos at the end of this. See ya. Boo.